Ever since Princess Diana's tragic death in a car crash in Paris in 1997, suspicions surrounding King Charles, then Prince of Wales, have never truly faded. Whispers behind palace walls, skeptical glances, and countless conspiracy theories have simmered for more than 2 decades, all of which have now reignited with the sudden leak of a shocking video clip. The short footage, captured in what seems like an ordinary moment, reveals an unsettlingly cold expression and a piercing gaze from the king right as the world was grieving Diana's untimely passing. The clip has gone viral, prompting the resurfacing of long-buried questions. Was King Charles truly uninvolved? What really unfolded within the royal family in the days leading up to Diana's mysterious death? Who leaked this footage? Why now? And most importantly, could this be the missing piece in the puzzle of the most controversial tragedy in British royal history? Let's dive deeper into the truth that's been waiting to surface. She was religious in putting on her seatbelt. Why didn't she put it on that night? Now, American journalist Tucker Carlson analyzed new leaked footage capturing an unguarded moment of King Charles in the hours after Diana's death, and his opinion has set the internet on fire. Was the future king truly heartbroken? Or does this tape expose something far more unsettling? The tragic night, the night of August 31st, 1997, was one of unimaginable tragedy. An event that would send shockwaves around the world and leave an enduring scar on the British monarchy. Princess Diana, the world's most beloved royal, was in Paris with her companion, Dodi Al-Fayed, seeking a brief escape from the relentless glare of the media, yet even in the city of light, there was no true reprieve. Paparazzi swarmed the Ritz Hotel, where the couple had spent the evening, determined to capture their every move. As the night deepened, Diana and Dodi made a fateful decision to leave the hotel through a rear entrance in hopes of avoiding the prying lenses. Their escape plan involved a black Mercedes-Benz S280 driven by Henri Paul, the Ritz's deputy head of security. In the passenger seat sat bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones, while Diana and Dodi nestled in the back, unaware that this final car ride would soon be etched in history. What happened next remains one of the most scrutinized moments of the 20th century. The car sped away from the Ritz with a swarm of motorcycles and photographers in pursuit. Witnesses described the scene as chaotic flashes of cameras illuminating the dark Parisian streets, the roar of engines reverberating off the walls. Inside the Mercedes, tension was palpable. Henri Paul, under immense pressure to shake off the pursuers, navigated through the labyrinth of roads leading toward the Seine. At 12:23 am, the black sedan entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel at an alarming speed within seconds. Everything changed. The vehicle, traveling at an estimated 8 to 70 miles per hour, twice the legal limit, lost control, veered toward the right, and slammed into the 13th pillar with catastrophic force. The impact was instantaneous and devastating. Dodi Al-Fayed and Henri Paul were killed on the spot. Trevor Rees-Jones, though severely injured, was the only survivor. Princess Diana was still alive. Though critically wounded, her body lay twisted in the wreckage, barely conscious. Bystanders rushed to the scene, but among them were intrusive photographers, their camera shutters clicking mercilessly even as she gasped for life. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, led by Dr. Frédéric Maillet, who happened to be passing by. He found Diana moaning in pain, her pulse weak but present. Firefighters and paramedics worked to extricate her from the mangled vehicle, a process that took nearly 40 minutes, unlike in other countries. French emergency protocol dictated stabilizing a patient on site before transporting them, a decision that remains controversial to this day. At 1:25 am, the ambulance carrying Diana finally departed for Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital. Along the way, her condition worsened, and she suffered a cardiac arrest. Paramedics performed CPR, reviving her briefly before she reached the hospital. There, a team of surgeons fought desperately to save her life. Diana had suffered a ruptured pulmonary vein, a severe internal injury that caused massive bleeding. Doctors performed open-heart surgery, but the damage was too great. At 4:00 am, after exhaustive attempts to revive her, Princess Diana was pronounced dead. The news of Diana's death spread like wildfire, The world awoke to disbelief, grief, and a sense of profound loss. Streets outside Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace were soon flooded with mourners, flowers piled up in the thousands, candlelight vigils were held, and people openly wept for a princess who had touched millions of lives. Yet amidst this global mourning, an eerie silence loomed over the British royal family at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, where Queen Elizabeth II, Prince Philip, Prince Charles, and Diana's young sons, William and Harry, were staying. The news shattered the morning calm. The Queen was informed in the early hours but chose to maintain an air of composure, focusing instead on shielding William and Harry from the media frenzy that was about to unfold for hours. There was no official statement from Buckingham Palace, an omission that did not go unnoticed. The public grew restless, demanding to know why the royal family remained distant in the face of such an overwhelming tragedy. Speculations arose. Was this a cold detachment? Or was it a carefully measured response designed to protect two grieving children? Prince Charles, upon hearing the news, was reportedly devastated despite their divorce. Diana was still the mother of his children, and he knew the impact her death would have on William and Harry. A tense discussion ensued: should the princes be woken immediately, or should they be allowed to sleep? In the end, it was decided that they would be told in the morning when dawn broke over Balmoral. The young princes' lives were forever changed. William, then 15, and Harry, just 12, were gently told that their mother had died in a car accident. The news crushed them. Harry later revealed in interviews that he initially refused to believe it, convinced that his mother had simply gone into hiding to escape the media. William, though equally devastated, took on a protective role, trying to be strong for his younger brother. As Diana's coffin arrived in London, the nation's grief reached an overwhelming peak, but anger, too, was brewing. The Queen's continued silence only fueled public frustration. People wanted to hear from their monarch, to feel that the royal family shared in their sorrow. The pressure mounted, and by September 5th, Queen Elizabeth II made an unprecedented televised address, her first ever, regarding a personal loss. We have seen throughout Britain and around the world an overwhelming expression of sadness at Diana's death, she said, standing before millions. She paid tribute to Diana as an exceptional and gifted human being. Her words, though reserved, helped mend the deepening divide between the monarchy and its people. On September 6, 1997, the world stood still as Princess Diana's funeral took place at Westminster Abbey. Over 2.5 billion people watched as her coffin, draped in the royal standard, made its way through London. Among the most heartbreaking images was that of her sons walking behind her casket. William and Harry, alongside Prince Charles, Prince Philip, and Diana's brother, Earl Spencer, marched in solemn procession, a sight that remains one of the most poignant in modern history, as Elton John performed Candle in the Wind, rewritten in her honor. There wasn't a dry eye in the Abbey or in homes across the world. Diana was laid to rest on an island at Althorpe, her family's ancestral home. There, in the tranquility of the countryside, the people's princess found her final peace. The days that followed were some of the most defining moments in Charles's life. The Queen ultimately delivered a rare live broadcast addressing the nation and paying tribute to Diana. But it was Charles who had steered the monarchy toward a more modern, compassionate response to grief. Even in his own mourning, he recognized that Diana had changed the monarchy forever. The rigid traditions that had once defined them were no longer enough. The public demanded a monarchy that could express emotion, that could be seen as human. It would take years for Charles to fully escape the shadow of his failed marriage with Diana, but in the wake of her death, his role was clear. He was not just a future king, but a father who had to protect his sons from the weight of an entire grieving nation. And on that fateful morning at Balmoral Castle, as the first rays of dawn crept over the Scottish Highlands, Charles knew nothing would ever be the same again. The complicated relationship. To understand the magnitude of Diana's passing, one must first examine her relationship with Charles in the years leading up to her death. Fox News show Tucker Carlson Tonight dedicated a whole segment to their story, setting the stage for never-before-scrutinized footage of Charles right after Diana's death. Their marriage was not just a royal union, but a spectacle, scrutinized by the public, dissected by the media, and in its later years defined by sorrow, betrayal, and resentment. From the beginning, their relationship was built on shaky foundations. Diana, the 19-year-old aristocratic bride, was thrust into the rigid world of monarchy where duty overshadowed affection. Charles, more than a decade her senior, had already developed a deep emotional bond with Camilla Parker Bowles, a woman he considered his confidant and true love. The gap between Charles and Diana widened as the years passed, and the public watched as their fairy tale facade crumbled. The world bore witness to their unraveling marriage, a slow-motion catastrophe played out in the pages of tabloids and television screens. It was not just rumors of discord, but visible cracks, their cold body language at public events, their sharp words in private moments caught on camera. Diana's 1995 interview with the BBC's Panorama was the final, undeniable confirmation of what many had suspected. There were three of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded, she said. This revelation shattered the illusion of royal stability and exposed the emotional toll Diana endured. Charles had already resumed his close relationship with Camilla, a connection that never truly faded. Meanwhile, Diana was left to navigate the loneliness of palace life under the unrelenting gaze of the press. By 1996, their divorce was finalized. The fairy tale was officially over, but the wounds from their bitter separation remained fresh. Diana, now free from the constraints of royal life, was embracing a new chapter one, where she was no longer bound by palace rules or expectations. She threw herself into humanitarian work with a renewed sense of purpose, championing causes that brought her fulfillment and global admiration. Her efforts to eradicate landmines, comfort AIDS patients, and advocate for the disadvantaged were a stark contrast to the image of a discarded princess seeking solace in luxury. She was carving out a new identity, one that did not include Charles. But as Diana flourished in her newfound independence, questions remained about her relationship with the man who once vowed to love and cherish her. The public was divided. Did Charles still care for Diana in any meaningful way? Or had their years of estrangement left him emotionally detached, so much so that her tragic passing was merely an unfortunate event rather than a profound personal loss? When news broke of Diana's fatal car crash in Paris on August 31st, 1997, the world mourned. Crowds gathered outside Kensington Palace, leaving an ocean of flowers, letters, and candles in tribute. But while the public grieved openly, Charles's reaction remained shrouded in royal discretion. There were reports of his initial shock, his concern for his sons, and even his insistence on flying to Paris to bring Diana's body home. Yet many questioned whether his sorrow was one of true heartbreak or simply the weight of responsibility. After all, she was still the mother of his children, and her passing would forever alter the monarchy. Was Charles burdened by guilt? Did he reflect on what could have been had their marriage not unraveled the way it did? Or was he relieved that the chapter of Diana, a woman who had become a rebellious force against the crown, had come to an irreversible close? The public address the world was in mourning. The streets of London overflowed with flowers, photographs, and handwritten notes. Grown men wept openly in public. Princess Diana had been the people's princess, and her tragic death sent shockwaves across the globe. And yet, when Prince Charles finally stepped forward to speak, something felt off. His words, though appropriate, felt scripted, measured, and devoid of the raw emotion that millions were expecting. She was a remarkable person who inspired countless people with her warmth and kindness. We will all miss her. He spoke slowly, his voice unwavering, no quiver of grief, no struggle for breath. His expression remained neutral, his delivery practiced, almost clinical. The public response to Diana's death has been really quite remarkable. He added body language. Experts later dissected every frame of the footage. They noted how his posture remained rigid, how his facial muscles barely moved, how his eyes rarely blinked. Some theorized that he was simply upholding the infamous British stiff upper lip, the royal doctrine of suppressing emotions in times of crisis. But to the public, his lack of outward sorrow felt unsettling. The footage of his speech was replayed endlessly across television screens, sparking a fiery debate. Was Charles simply following royal protocol? Or did this moment expose something deeper? A detachment, a relief, an indifference for years. The speculation persisted, but the real shock would come decades later when a never-before-seen recording surfaced footage that would change everything the world thought it knew about that moment in history. Time had dulled the sharp edge of Diana's passing. The world had moved on, or at least it had tried. Charles had ascended to the throne. His public image had been carefully reshaped. Diana's memory remained untarnished, an eternal figure of grace, but the scandals of the past had faded into the background. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, a grainy video surfaced online. It was uploaded anonymously to a social media platform with a cryptic caption. The world never saw this until now. At first, it seemed like just another conspiracy video, an attempt to rehash old wounds, but within minutes, the footage spread like wildfire. It was quickly picked up by journalists, historians, and amateur investigators. The video was dated the night of Diana's death, long before Charles's carefully crafted public address. This wasn't a press conference nor a pre-recorded message. It was raw, unfiltered, and clearly never meant for the public eye. The world held its breath. Why had it been hidden for so long? For years, the official narrative had been simple. Charles was in shock. He grieved in private, away from the public's eye. He had rushed to Paris to retrieve Diana's body, displaying quiet dignity in the face of an unimaginable loss. But in the new video, Charles is seen behind closed doors, pacing in what appears to be a private office or drawing room. His movements are quick, erratic. He runs a hand through his hair, exhales sharply, and mutters something to his advisors, though the audio is muffled. His expression isn't one of devastation nor sorrow. Instead, he looks frustrated, restless. There is no sign of tears, no evident despair. Instead, there's tension, exasperation, and at times what appears to be agitation. Then, a key moment in the footage, Charles turns to someone off-screen, gestures with his hands, and speaks in a low, hurried tone. The words are partially inaudible, but lip readers and audio specialists who analyzed the footage claimed he might have said, "This is an absolute disaster." The context is unclear. Was he referring to Diana's death itself, the media frenzy, the impact on the monarchy? And then, an even more disturbing moment at one point in the footage, a voice, believed to be Charles, mutters something that sends shockwaves across the internet. The grainy quality makes it difficult to decipher. The words are muffled, but analysts suggest he might have said something along the lines of, "She always knew this would happen." Immediately, theories exploded. What did he mean? Had Diana expressed fears about her safety? Was this an acknowledgement of the countless times she had warned about being a target? Or was it something else entirely, something darker? Speculation reached a fever pitch. Royal commentators scrambled to offer explanations. While conspiracy theorists dissected every second of the clip, was this moment the key to unlocking something the world had missed? The footage was soon removed from multiple platforms, fueling further intrigue. Who had uploaded it? Who had suppressed it? And why had it remained hidden for so long? Media frenzy and public uproar. The footage detonated like a bombshell in the media landscape, igniting a firestorm of controversy that spread across the globe. Within hours, it was as if a long dormant wound had been torn open, forcing the world to relive the grief, confusion, and scandal that had followed Diana's tragic passing. News outlets scrambled to analyze every frame, with journalists and royal commentators dissecting Charles's body language, expressions, and demeanor. American journalist Tucker Carlson personally analyzed the elusive footage, guiding the younger generation, those who had only ever known Diana as a legend, through a story whose end many have yet to come to terms with. Is this the behavior of a grieving ex-husband, he asked on live TV? The public seemed to agree with his skepticism. Royal analysts struggled to contain the growing narrative that Charles had been cold, detached, or worse, complicit in a narrative that downplayed his ex-wife's death. TV panels were stacked with former palace aides, journalists who had covered Diana's final years, and body language experts scrutinizing every second of the leaked clip. The king appears disinterested at best and utterly devoid of emotion at worst, Carlson insisted. Look at the way he shifts uncomfortably, the way his eyes dart, not in grief, but in frustration. Pundits dissected every possibility. Was Charles's reaction merely one of a man in deep shock, struggling to process an unprecedented tragedy? Or did this moment expose a carefully orchestrated act, a performance of sorrow for the benefit of the world? Social media was unforgiving, and hashtag gig, hashtag Cold Charles trended within hours, with thousands of users sharing clips, memes, and side-by-side comparisons of Charles's public statements versus his demeanor in the footage. Some posts contrasted his speech about being devastated with the footage's alleged indifference. Others pulled archival footage of Diana's interviews, including her infamous BBC Panorama interview, where she had chillingly declared, "There were three of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." Now, with this new revelation, many question whether Charles had ever truly regretted losing Diana at all, or if her death had merely removed the one woman who had overshadowed him for years. Buckingham Palace's response as the backlash reached a fever pitch. Buckingham Palace had no choice but to address the situation. A wall of silence was no longer an option, not in an era where digital outrage could spiral into a full-blown crisis within hours. By the next morning, a formal statement was issued. The footage in question has been taken out of context and does not reflect the depth of emotion felt by His Majesty King Charles III. At the time, this was an internal moment of crisis management in the wake of an unimaginable tragedy. The royal family, then and now, has always held the memory of Diana, Princess of Wales, in the highest regard. Yet, rather than quelling the storm, the statement seemed to inflame it further. Critics pointed out that the footage had not simply been taken out of context, it had been hidden for decades. Several journalists, including Carlson, speculated that the footage had been locked away to protect Charles's reputation, especially during his early reign, when he struggled to win over public opinion. Others suggested that certain factions within the monarchy had known of its existence but had never expected it to be leaked. But regardless of who had kept it under wraps, one thing was certain: the royal family was now scrambling to control the fallout. Leaked reports claimed that senior aides were in emergency meetings with advisors, working around the clock to contain the damage. Some insiders allegedly pushed for Charles to make a direct statement, perhaps even an unscripted, emotional address to the nation. But others feared that acknowledging the footage would only deepen the crisis, as any deviation from the palace's official statement could unravel decades of careful reputation management. And so, as the world waited for a response beyond cold press releases, a new question emerged: was Buckingham Palace engaged in damage control or outright denial? The impact Diana's legacy has only grown more powerful over the years. Her compassion, her humanitarian work, and her status as the people's princess remain untouched by time, even in death. She continues to overshadow the royal family, with each new generation discovering her story and questioning the institution she left behind. But for King Charles, the struggle to escape her shadow has been a lifelong battle. He has spent decades attempting to reshape public perception, to redefine himself not as the man who once stood in Diana's towering silhouette, but as a modern monarch leading a new era. His reign was meant to turn the page on past scandals, to focus on duty and service rather than tabloid controversies. And yet, this footage threatens to undo all of that. With its release, the past has come crashing back, forcing a new generation to scrutinize Charles in ways never seen before. Many who had accepted his redemption arc now question whether they had been too quick to forgive, too eager to move on from the ghosts of the past. Will the world ever see King Charles the same way again? Has this footage rewritten history? Or perhaps, most hauntingly, has it finally revealed the real King Charles? One thing is certain: the monarchy, once so adept at keeping its secrets buried, has just had one of its greatest mysteries dragged into the light. And now the world is watching like never before. The death of Princess Diana has never truly faded from the public's memory. And now, with this newly leaked footage, the long-standing silence of the royal family is once again under intense scrutiny. The actions, expressions, and especially the absence of King Charles during those critical moments after the tragic accident are igniting fresh waves of suspicion. The biggest question remains: is there something being hidden behind the ancient walls of the monarchy? What this footage delivers is not just shock, it's a wake-up call. It reminds us that history should not be controlled by those in power. Everyone deserves the truth, not stories carefully crafted to soothe the public eye. And if that truth is painful, at least the pain is honest. Let us keep searching for the answers. Share this video so more people can see a different side of the story. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel where we continue to uncover the mysteries that were once thought to be buried forever.